Wilson Morales, Black Film and TV. Hello, Jasmine. How's it going?
Hi, Wilson. Nice to see you.
Yeah, we're finally here. Season 2 took a minute, but we're back. So, what are we getting with Ashley this season?
Oh, gosh, what are we not getting with Ashley this season? More chaos, I think. A little bit of more depression, I think, denial, and I think more of a crazy roller coaster, I think, of emotions. I think this season she's really grappling with the reality over time of Miles being in jail. And I think she's, everybody's saying that she's not fun. And I think she's trying to find who she is without Miles. And trying to get back to her old self, her individuality, but not really confronting, the actual feelings that she has, I think, with this situation. And she goes down a bit of a hole this season. Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing because, we can't say a lot because it's a weekly series, which gives the audience time to, gather their thoughts per week to see where are we going with this character, as opposed to a show that airs all its episode at once. So in between a time between when it's coming out Friday and, all that time shooting it, how much did you work with the producers and the writers as far as mapping out where this character is going?
Almost every day. I mean, we talk all the time. I'm very close with Rafa and Diggs, and every day just assessing where she's at and how she would handle things. But I think I have such an understanding of Ashley at this point. I've been with her for a couple of years now, starting with the film. And so as we grow with how we tell this story and we get more crazy, I think all of the characters get crazier as well, and how they handle situations. It's not really normal how they handle these things, but it's great. I think they all kind of lean on each other as well. So it was great coming back with all of this cast, this beautiful, talented cast, and leaning on each other and, asking questions and just being open and curious,
When I look at the show, the word that comes to mind is zany,
Yeah.
Everybody's zany and you never know what you're going to get out of it. And it's very funny, very comedic. What skill set has gotten better as you do these episodes? Your poetry skills, your facial expressions?
I think it's interpreting text very last minute. I've gotten very good at that. 2 of my verses I got the day before. Well, actually not the first verse that I do in the first episode, but the other 2 that I got last minute, and had to learn really, 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 really fast. So this show definitely puts me on my toes, and I think makes me a better, artist, a better performer.
Now, you've mentioned you've been with this character for a long time because of the film and so forth, and you've done other projects in between. What would you say has evolved as your skill set as an actress?
To be honest, I did a lot of new things this season. I learned how to ride a horse. I've never gotten on a horse before. I learned new skills this season. There were a lot of rewrites, and this season it gets crazier. I think my improv got better. I think just overall this show it's intense, it's witty, it's funny, it's gut-wrenching, but you need to kind of bring it, I think, as an artist and as a performer for this show, and be ready for whatever's kind of thrown at you. And I think a lot of us we have theater in our background, and that is a big thing that we are used to in theater. And so, you know, I'm able to kind of implement that in the show, and I'm able to kind of do crazy things and things that I've never done before, but also be extremely supported while I'm doing these things. So this season, I've definitely grown a lot as an artist because of the work that I had to do on the show.
I want to say congrats. Obviously, when you get a season 2, that tells an audience this show's here to stay. Because sometimes when you get these shows, and you know, nowadays, if you can go past one season, that means it's stable. Let's get involved with these characters, at least from an audience perspective, so we can see what's it all about. So congrats, keep it going. You know, I'm always here to support. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Wilson. Hopefully see you soon.
What's Morales, Black Film and TV? I know we spoke once before during season 1, but we're here now, season 2. What are we getting from Rainey?
You know, always a lot of humor and a lot of trying to keep this family smiling, and then some real anguish. It's a chance to kind of glimpse behind all of the "we can do this" to what she's suffering from, and they've given me some spoken word stuff to express that, and it's just a beautiful like bouquet of a show. I think there's humor and heartbreak and dance and song and poetry, and you get a lot for your 30 minutes. You really do.
In the time between obviously season 1 and now, how much did you practice on your spoken word? You can say it naturally, where we feel it's not acting, you like it comes off you.
I mean, that would mean that scripts are written months in advance. So that's not how it works. But I did have it in enough time to just, you know, repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat until it felt like it was sort of in my bones rather than just in my head.
When you do a series, and obviously you're no stranger to doing these things, how long does it take before you really feel and know this character? Even though season 1's been completed already, but now that we're at season 2, an audience knows, you know, okay, here's the show that's here to stay. It's been, you know, the network feels confident about it. Because sometimes, you know, you can get invested in the show, and if it doesn't go past season 1, then you're like, oh, the question is, how long does it take before you get invested into the character, even though season 1 has been complete?
I was invested before season 1 started. I love Rafa and David, who created it. I love the movie. I love Jasmine, and I love the idea of the shows, and I love the idea of this character. So I was in before we started. And then the first big scene where you meet Rainey and you meet Jaylen's character, Trish, was, you know, 8 or 9 pages of moving through this wild wonderland of a house. And by the time we got that scene under our belt, I felt like there was a family feeling to the group of actors.
Was there anything you wanted to change regarding Rainey's personality as we enter season 2? Or did you just leave it up to the writers?
Yeah, I had no agenda about it. I had a meeting with the writers and we just all talked about, you know, I did say, and I'm sure they were going to do this anyway, but I did say, like, where's the actual rage? Like, she's been so good about trying to keep the grandson's chin up and trying to keep everybody from sinking into a hole of despair. But when is her moment to actually speak the rage of the mother of an incarcerated, you know, father? They definitely gave me that.
And she seems to have a lot of talent. Like you just mentioned, where's the rage? You know, because she knows she has to live through this family in order to keep the peace. You know, is that something that you work with the writers as far as when is she going to break out? At some point, somebody's got to say something. You know,
yeah,
she's the older one.
This seemed like a good time for her to do that, but overall, I don't think she's keeping the peace. I think she's keeping the spirit up. You know, she's keeping some joy in the family and some humor, and you know, help them get through to the other side.
With so many shows now, obviously, because the streaming circle has grown, there's a lot more product out there. So now you just got to fight for competition, fight for an audience, because it's not so easily that's there. Good thing that this is a weekly show, because it gives time for an audience to get invested in, as opposed to like all of it at once. So for anybody who's just now knowing that you're on the show and that they're hearing about the show, what would you say is the sell if they haven't seen season 1 or the film?
I mean, how many shows are funny and moving and use dance and poetry, and it's as funny as a sitcom and as heartbreaking as a dramatic movie, all wrapped in a bouquet of different kinds of art forms. You know what I mean? That's a lot. That's a lot, and it's about something that matters.
Mm-hmm. It's good talking to you. Obviously, my optimism is that we'll talk again. Season.
I hope you're right. Thank you so much.
Take care. Wilson Morales from Black Film and TV. Hey, I want to say congrats to David because you're making it happen.
Wilson, what's up, man?
Hey, so obviously some time has gone by for you guys to map out the second season. Did you guys already had it planned and it was just waiting for you guys to get into production, or did you guys change things along the long period of time? Rafael?
Oh, I mean, I think every season we try to complete it as if that's its movie, this 4-hour thing, these 8 episodes. I think privately we will have little conversations about, look, if the opportunity comes up to continue this, where would we want to go? But I think we try to keep it really self-contained. Season 2 is the same way. Like the first and last episode are this self-contained season. And so I think we say a lot like, we close the door, but we leave a window open. And if we want to use that and make that bigger and make that into the next season, we'll do it. But we like to have every season be sort of a singular thought.
After the first season, I'm sure you've seen enough write-ups and you have a team that tells you what's right, what's wrong, but because it's a weekly series, is it a little bit more challenging knowing how to map it out as opposed to something that's streaming all the way through all at once, David?
No, I mean, I think like at this point we're used to watching TV in a bunch of different ways, and kind of like the moment we're in television is just like we understand that this is a 4-hour movie chopped up or whatever. So it kind of all works like that. And so yeah, I think what it allows us to do is like over the course of the big story, think intentionally about what we're not seeing. That's the nice thing about the weekly format, is it allows you like a chance to be really intentional about the breathing space in it and be like, well, we've taken this much time off. Like, what do we think we retained from the last episode? And then because of that, like, what choices can we make going forward? Basically, what can we skip? This show is only 30 minutes long. So like, what do we get to not show and have it still be funny and in depth and like still have us fall in love with everybody? That's kind of the thing. But it's nice to sort of know that for some people they will have that intentionality. But realistically, right, like of us, maybe probably more, are gonna watch this straight through at some point. Like it's just how we consume things.
Because this is a 30-minute dramedy, as I call it, is it challenging when you have to come up with comedic elements, drama elements, and then poetry elements, because you want to throw it in there. Every moment we'll get a dancing sequence in there, So like for you guys, Rafael, how is it, with the writing staff, when you put it together, and then obviously you have to edit all this stuff, because it's a 30-minute format.
Yeah, I mean, look, all the conventions are intentional. It's like, if you go into a show and you're like, oh, we're just going to have all these cool elements and you just roll the dice on where they're going to show up, it's chaos, right? Like that's kind of the worst kind of storytelling. I mean, we have internal rules. The dance is serving a very particular purpose. It's when language fails, and it's when the arm of the prison industrial complex is being felt on the protagonist of the show. That's the only time it happens. And so we're really particular about when there's going to be dance and why. The verse stuff is somewhat similar. It's my internal rule about the verse is that these are these sort of poetic letters to Sean when he's older. And so it's when Ashley doesn't have someone to talk to or wants to explain something to Sean, but can't because he's not old enough. And so we're really particular about when those two things happen. And then like this season has a Henson creature that follows Sean around. It's like you could look at it as like, oh, they've added this chaotic, fantasy character, but it's like, no, it's this character as a representation of the absence of his father and the desire to pull away from his mother because he's a 7-year-old boy. And so we have sort of these rules and grids for how we approach these sort of absurd magical realism elements in the show. And we try to make sure that while we're playing in our lane of what kind of show we're creating, that we're very, very intentional and deliberate about when it heightens and leaves this grounded world that we built. Because the reality is, like, there could be a show that's just a grounded version of this world, and that would play well too. So to leave it has to add something to the context of the story. And that's really what we're focused on in season 2, is making sure that anytime that we're elevating the reality of the show, we're doing it to deepen our understanding of the characters and the circumstance they're in.
The two of you, along with Jasmine, have been a team for a good minute. For Helen, whose idea was to get her in the poetry game?
I think it was Helen's idea. I think she at some point probably said, when am I doing verse?
Why don't I get to it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how that happened.
I think we were also just excited to see what she would do with it, because that character speaks so differently than everyone else. We'd only seen Ashley and Earl do verse so far. And so getting to write something for Helen was, I think, a lot of fun for us. And Jess Wu Calder, who that episode is her directorial debut, and she's directing Helen in her first verse moment on the show. And so expanding to another character for verse was just like an exciting frontier. We had to make sure that there was a reason that it was happening, and her crisis of faith and an inability to speak to any one person about it. And so choosing to speak to sort of an unknown spirituality with her inner monologue out loud felt like all right, that's it. That's what we'll hear how her internal, pentameter would play.
I want to say congrats on the season 2. Keep it going. Obviously, it's not easy to be on a show weekly and keep it going. And then when you have the faith and confidence of the network and to keep you guys going, it gives everybody an audience to know, hey, let's get into this show because there's belief in it. So congrats again. And I'm sure hopefully we'll talk season 3.
Yeah. Thank you, Wilson. We appreciate it, man.
Thank you, man.
Take care, folks.